Hello everyone, I'm Siddharthan. LangChain has recently dropped a massive update. They have officially released LangChain V1 and trust me, this changes a lot. If you have been working with rack pipelines, agents or LangGraph before, things are going to look very different now. The older components have been refactored into something called LangChain Classic, while LangChain V1 is laser focused on agents and building them has never been this simple. So in this video, we will build a chat agent from scratch using LangChain in a step-by-step process. And in the upcoming videos, we will go even deeper into multi-agent systems, LangGraph V1, and build real-world use cases. So make sure to stay till the end and hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss out what's coming next. So before diving in, if you're serious about mastering generative AI, I've got something special for you. Check out my complete generative AI course on Udemy. It's not your typical theory course, it's hands-on, project-driven, and built to make you job ready. You will build 3 full capstone projects and create rack systems, AI agents, and MCP servers, and even take them to production with proper deployments, all step by step. It's designed for developers who actually want to build real world generative AI apps, not just read about them. And right now you can grab it for just 549 Indian rupees using my exclusive coupon code SID November 25. So you can click the link in the description that has the coupon code in it and you can just start learning and build generative AI projects that actually matter. Alright, let's jump straight into the hands-on part of how we can build this chat agent with LangChain V1. So I'm going to do this on Google Collaboratory, but feel free to do this on your Jupyter Notebook or other IDEs as well of your choice. So the first step is installing the libraries. So we can say pip install -q LangChain and LangChain Grok. So the LLM that I'm going to use for the agent, I'm going to use Grok APIs as you have a free tier for that, but you can use OpenAI, Gemini or other Olama local LLMs as well. But for now, we will stick with LangChain Grok. So when you run this, this is going to install the latest versions, but you can also make sure to provide those versions so that like you are always up to date. So you can just go to Google and search for LangChain, right? So in this PyPI, so you will see this LangChain version, the latest version is 1.0.3. So copy and paste it over here. So put a double equal to sign and paste it here. And the other one that we need is LangChain Grok for our LLM. So I'll say LangChain Grok. So if you have already installed LangChain, this you need to update this or simply just run those exact, pip install command that I'm running. So I've said exclamatory mark, that is just to say that this is a command that you need to run. Pip install -q LangChain 1.0.3 and LangChain Grok 1.0.0. So I'll run this. So this is going to connect to a session and start installing these libraries in this working session in Google Collaboratory. And if you see, I've included a -q. -q represents quiet mode. That means you won't see like all those longer logs and the verbos and so on about like the libraries getting installed. So it's going to keep things simple, as you can see here, instead of saying like, I'm installing this library, that library, and so on. So this is for that quiet mode. So we have now installed the latest version of LangChain and LangChain Grok. So now let's go to the next step. So here I'm going to say import OS. This is because in order to use the Grok LLMs as APIs, we need the Grok API key. So first we need to configure that in our environment variable. So go to Google, search for Grok API keys, and here you will see this console.grok.com/keys. So this is where you can get your keys. You can sign up with your Google account itself and also Grok as a free tier. I have a developer tier where it's kind of like a pay as you go, but even that gives you a very little bill, but you don't have to kind of register for that with your card and all that. So the free tier version works perfectly well. So you should be like good when you're developing things with that. So in this API keys site, you can click this create API key. And I'm going to name this as LangChain V1 agents. Okay, and I'll click on this submit. So this is going to create a key for me that I can use later in my code. Let's wait for this. Yeah, so we got this key. So please save this somewhere safe so that you can reuse this later, and you cannot share this with someone or don't post this to GitHub or something because someone can use it. So os.environ, and the name of this environment variable should be grok_API_key. So all should be in uppercase letter. Put a equal to sign, and this is a string, right? So the key is a string, so enclose it in double quotes. So run this. So this is going to save this key in the environment variable called as grok API key, and the LangChain grok library will look into this particular environment variable to get the key. So that is the idea of this. So now let's create this agent, and it is a very simple process. So let's see. So here I'll say from LangChain dot agents import create underscore agent. So previously, as I said, so we would have like create a React agent in LangGraph, but that has been depreciated, and now we only have this create agent in LangChain, and this is like super simple. So this is what we are going to use, and in the next line, I'll say uh, agent is equal to create agent, open and close your parentheses, and within that we can pass the parameters. So first is model, like what's the LLM that you want to use. As we are using grok, first I have to give the provider's name. Provider can be your grok, OpenAI, Olama, basically who is providing your LLM. So if you're using OpenAI, so instead of grok, mention their respective name. Let's say for OpenAI you have to mention OpenAI all in lowercase letter. So here I'm going to use grok, as we know, so I'm saying this as grok. And now we need to kind of use a particular model. So again, go to Google and you can search for grok models. In the documents you will see like the list of models available. So here we have this supported model sections, right? So these are the different models that we can use. So for this particular chat agent, even a 8 billion instant model is sufficient. So it's kind of like a smaller compared to a 70 billion version, but this is sufficient. So here you will see this copy symbol. So copy that. This is the name that we want to use, llama 3.1 8 billion instant. So I'll come back here and say grok colon llama 3.1 8 billion instant. So this is my first parameter. And you also have another parameter called as tools. So if you want your agents to use some tools, you can pass those tools in this list and pass this to the parameter called as tools. But this is a chat agent, so we don't have to use any tools. But again, in the later videos we will try to build more advanced and complex agents that has like access to different tools and external knowledge. So for now you can keep this empty. That means the agent is not going to use any tools. And then we have the system prompt that we can add. So system prompt is like what you want this agent to basically do. So as I said, we are building a simple chat agent, right? So we can frame this similar to that. So you just have to represent that in a string. Maybe I'll move this to a separate line. Okay. This is just to make sure that we have this in multi-line string. Yeah, I think maybe that's not necessary right now. Okay, so system prompt, you are a helpful chat assistant. So this is what we are saying. You are a helpful chat assistant. Be clear, concise, and polite. Understand the user's intent and respond directly. Stay professional and safe. So this is a system prompt, but you can update this as per your requirement. If you are building a different chatbot, you can update this accordingly. Again, as I said, if you don't want this to be in a larger line, you can simply break this and represent this as a multi-line string. So because like we have this pip age standard where you say like the line in each line should be like 88 characters or something. So if you want to follow that, you can do that, but maybe for now let's just like keep it as is. So first we are using this create agent method, and for that we are passing this first parameter as like what's the provider and the corresponding LLM. If you are using OpenAI, you would use something like GPT-5, GPT-5 mini or something. So tools is empty and system prompt says you are a helpful chat assistant. Be clear, concise, and polite. Understand the user intent and respond directly. Stay professional and safe. So this is our agent. And finally, you can invoke this agent this way. So I'll say result is equal to agent.invoke. This agent.invoke is the one that's going to call this agent, pass the input, and get the output for us. So here we have to pass this as what we call as messages. So we have to pass this as dictionary. So I'll say the key should be messages and open a list. So this list should again contain a dictionary, and this dictionary would have a role. So this is similar to what we would kind of use for other API calls. So it's like nothing complex at all. I'll explain you once this is done. So this is user, and then we have this content. Content is explain machine learning in short. Okay, so basically what happens is whenever we make a API call, so we would frame a system prompt and then we would send a user message and the assistant would give a response. So this is the format for this. So there should be a list that has a role and a content key. So this is for one message. So this is like the data format for your each single message. So here we say that the role is user. That means the user or the person is asking a question and the question is given in this content. Explain machine learning in short. Next message would be the role would be assistant and the assistant would give us a content. I'll explain you once we kind of build a chatbot with chat history right after this. But yeah, this is the basic format for a single message. So it should contain a role. Role should say whether it's a user or assistant, and the content is like their actual message, actual question of the user or the response of the assistant. So we are passing this within a dictionary, and this dictionary has a key called as messages, and this is passed to this agent.invoke, and this agent is built using this create agent with the corresponding model, tools, and system prompt. So let's run this. So this is going to use the Grok LLM for this agent, and the agent is going to come up with the answer for this particular question. So now let's print this result. So you can say print result, and you will see like the entire output. So we have this messages. Human message is what we have sent basically. So in this content you have explained machine learning in short. So note this, it is coming in the form of a dictionary, and this dictionary has a key called as messages, and within that we have human message, content, and all that. So if you just like scroll to the right, you will see the assistant's response over here. So we have this AI message, content is machine learning is a type of artificial intelligence, and so on. So this is our output. Now let's see how we can print our output alone, not just like the entire output with the metadata and all that, but just the output. Here I can say print result. So this is present in a dictionary, and this dictionary has a key called as messages, right? So this is what we are going to use. So I'll say result, and within square bracket I'll say messages in double quotes, and this message, if you see, this is a list, right? So this entire output is present in a list. So this is the first element of this list, right? So I can say uh, something like, sorry, so this is my first element. Human message is my first element until this part. Okay, so human message, and this AI message is my second part. So note this human message, and there is a parenthesis, right? This parenthesis close over here. So this is my first element of the list, whereas the AI message is my second element. So over here. Okay, so if you want to access this human message, you can say messages of 0, and then you can access this content, but we want the assistant response, right? So that is present in the second element. So second element can be accessed by 1 because this is the index. So human message as the index of 0 in this list, and the AI message as the index of 1 in this list. This is like simple list indexing, so nothing complex to it. And after that, say dot. So your second element is this AI message, and say dot content. So this is going to access the content value, and it's going to print it for us. So let's run this. Now you will see this is like the exact same thing that we are seeing over here, but we have just like captured only the AI response. Here we have machine learning, and it says machine learning is a type of artificial intelligence that enables computer to learn from data and make predictions and so on. So this is our output. So this is how you can simply call a agent. Again, this can be a very simple code and all that, but the idea here is not just to build a chat agent, but just to have a basic template that we can reuse for building other agents. So I'm planning to make kind of other stock analysis multi-agent system with this, the similar one that we have built with Crew AI and other stuff. So I'll try to build a similar video, but you can use this as a template for building some other agents as well. So understanding the basics is very important, as we know. So this is the purpose of this whole idea. So this is how you can create a agent that's going to answer you, but not just like sending that to a chatbot. Rather than, we can add more features to this agent, like you can add a weather prediction tool, or it can be like a machine learning classifier tool or anything, right? So we have recently built a machine learning engineer agent where the user can kind of give their medical details, and the agent would use a machine learning classifier tool that would say whether the patient is diabetic or not. So check out those in my recent videos. So similarly, you can take this as a base code, and you can just like build on top of that. So that's the entire scope or the entire purpose of this video. So this is the way you can build a simple thing, but we won't stop here. Now let's see how you can kind of build a chatbot, a CLI chatbot, where you can access it from the command line, even with chat history. So all these are like single questions, right? So now what if we want to send like a follow-up question saying like, I didn't understand this, explain this in detail or something. So let's see how we can do that. So this is the next part. Let me just open another code cell, and here I'll say This is LangChain V1 plus grok is create agent. But also this is a simple CLI, basically command line interface, chat with chat history. So this is what we are going to build now. Again, it's pretty much the code that we had, except we would have like a while loop that would keep running so that the user can send follow-up questions and get the answer for it. So that's the whole idea. So first I'll say import OS, and then I have to save my API key over here. So this is the next step. Okay. We can also maybe import this LangChain create agent over here. Okay, so from OS, import OS, and then from LangChain.agents, import create agent. This latest is the LangChain V1 version, so which is what we have installed 1.0.3. The next step is configuring the model. So, right, so you can just put all this in a single cell itself so that it can just like keep running. I'll call this as configure the LLM. So we are using like Grok Llama 3.1 8 billion instance. So this is the LLM that we are going to use. So now the next part is setting up your chat history. So we can initiate this chat history as an empty list. I'll explain you how you can do that, or like how this basically this chat history works and all that. But I'll just first finish this code a bit. So we have chat history as an empty list, and now we can print something like this. So chat assistant ready. Okay, chat assistant ready, type buy or exit to stop. So when we execute this cell, this is going to keep running. So the user has to type some questions and the agent will answer, and it still keeps running. So they can send a follow-up question or ask a completely new question and so on. So the chat keeps running. If they want to stop this, they can simply type buy or exit. So this is what we are intending to kind of build. So this can be done with a simple chat loop. So this, let's say that chat history list. Okay, and here let's say simple chat loop. So we want this to keep running, right? So basically you can use a while loop for that. So here I'll say while true, need to get the user input. So I'll say user input is equal to input of u dot strip. Strip is just to like remove any trailing or like preceding spaces. And here let's say if user input dot lower, I'll explain you the working of the code. Let's first maybe complete this in buy or exit, then print assistant says goodbye. Let's also add a emoji maybe. I'll say assistant is goodbye. So you type something and the assistant would respond to it. But in case you type buy or exit, it's going to break the while loop. Okay, and the assistant would say just like say goodbye, and then we can break it. So this is not an infinite loop because it keeps running, but the moment you type in buy or exit and press enter, it's going to break it because we get the user input as the first step, and we would just like type this something like q, and here the user would type something and we check if it's buy or exit. And if that's not the case, right, if this if block wouldn't run, and then we have like other pieces of the code. So here I'll say messages is equal to chat history. We are going to concatenate this similar structure. So you have a role, and the role here would be user. Yes, and then there will be a content, right? So this is the structure. So the same thing that we have built over here. So you have this messages as a list, and this list as a role, user, content, explain, machine learning or something, some content, right? So now we have this chat history which has like all these multiple dictionaries. So you just like have one element to it, right? So the one element is this dictionary that has like the user's first question. So this list is what we are building in this chat history list. The only difference is that you won't just have one message. So this is one message, right? So you'll have multiple user messages and multiple assistant response to it, and we keep concatenating to that to the chat history and we send it. So that's the overall idea to it. So here I'll say content is like what the user has given. You will kind of understand this better once we do it. If you have some doubts, let's see. So I'll say result is equal to agent.invoke. This is where the agent is actually getting called, and here we say messages is equal to messages. It's basically the same thing that we have done over here. The difference is that we are going to send multiple messages. Otherwise the structure is same. So we are using this agent.invoke and we have to pass this key called as messages, which should have the values in the form of a list. So that's exactly what we are doing here. The only difference is we are framing this messages list in the previous step. And then I can say extract reply. So the similar to the way that we have printed it over here, we are going to extract it. So previously we said like use a second element because that has the output. So now we are going to access it differently. We are going to say get the content from the last element, because the previous questions will be here. Let's say that the user is asking a question of what is machine learning, and the assistant gives a response of like the machine learning output. Now this is my second element. Now the user asks a question on explain this in short. That would be my third element, and the assistant gives the final response like in a short form of machine learning or like short definition of machine learning. So that becomes my fourth element. So now I cannot use this one always. So instead what you have to do is extract always the content of the last element. So that is like the latest output to your basically answer to your last user question. So now we can say only difference is that except for saying this one, you have to say -1. -1 represents last element in the list. So that's the idea to it. So here I'll say try. We can use a try block to handle the exceptions gracefully. So if there are any exceptions, we would say that something went wrong or this is the exact error or something. So that is the purpose. So let's say reply is equal to result messages. As I said, we have to access -1 dot content, and then we have a except block, except exception as E, and we can say reply is equal to string of E. So it's basically when the output is a successful case, the output is saved in this reply, but when there is an exception, we are storing this exception in this reply and we are going to print it so that it's easier for us to debug. And finally we can say print f of assistant and here we would have a reply. So we are using a f string, so we can substitute this reply as a variable when you enclose this within curly braces. Basically what happens is if you use this f string, whatever you mention within the curly braces, that are variables, not the exact strings. As you can see the color change. The white ones are variables, and when you use this f string, like that's what we are going to get. And then you can add this \n, which is a new line character. Whatever comes next will be printed on a new line. So that's about it. And finally we have to update this chat history. Okay, so for this I have to say chat history dot append role of user, and content is user input. And similarly we have to add the assistant response as well, so that the LLM or the agent has the context to it. So here the output will be the reply, and the user, instead of user we have to say assistant. So this is basically the entire code. So what we are doing is similar thing of what we did earlier, only difference is that we are going to use a while loop, and that while loop is going to call this agent invoke again and again, and it's going to send the entire chat history with the consequent follow-up questions and all that, instead of just having this as a one single question and one single answer thing. So we are doing that by creating a chat history list, and we keep appending whatever the question that the user asks and whatever the output or the reply that the assistant is giving. So we keep this while loop running. If the user types in buy or exit, they can even type this in uppercase letter or something, because we convert this to a lowercase letter, and then we are checking if there is a buy or exit. If the user has typed in one of these two, we are going to say the assistant kind of reply something like goodbye with this emoji. If not, this if condition is not going to work. So in this if condition has a break statement. So when this when the user types in this one of these two texts, it's going to break this while loop and it's going to stop executing. If they type in something or some other questions, it's going to execute the remaining part of the code. So we are kind of passing the previous chat history. What we are saying is, chat history is like what is present before. When the agent runs for the first time, it doesn't have any chat history, it is an empty list. So to this empty list, we are just like sending that first question, so we get the output in this result, and we are extracting this result over here, result messages -1 dot content, and we are printing it, and then finally adding that to the chat history. Now this still keeps running. This executes your while loop, and again it runs the contents of the while loop. Again, the user can type in buy or exit, or they can type in a different message. To this existing chat history, we append the new message that the user is typing in. Note this, we are not updating the chat history, rather than we are just like appending this and sending this in the variable called as messages, and this is passed to invoke. Only in this last step we are like appending the kind of or updating the chat history. So this is the entire step. If there is any exceptions, we are storing that in the variable called as e, and that is stored to reply, and that is given in this assistant thing. This is just to handle the errors gracefully, instead of like showing this red line showing that something went wrong, or like basically for that error handling purposes. So now I'll run this. Again, you can also save this to a .py Python script, and you can run this with Python command. So you can say, let's say I'm saving this to chat.py. You can access or run this in your CLI by saying Python space chat.py, and you can access this in your CLI itself. So here I'll ask a question like, or even I can say bye. So this is going to say goodbye, right? Because the condition is satisfied. Now I'll run this again. I can ask like a question like, what is YAML? So it's this is using grok, so it's going to be pretty fast. So this is the question that we have asked, what is ML, and then we came up with the assistant response. These are tags, you and assistant are tags that we have defined over here. So here you would type in something in this input, and then you have this assistant where it's going to give you the output for that question. So it like explains about machine learning, right? Now I can follow up something saying that explain in detail. So note that I'm not saying like explain about machine learning in detail. Rather, I'm just saying explain in detail. So the LLM should be able to access the previous conversation as we are providing the chat history, and it should be able to explain machine learning in detail. Okay, there is a value error. Function tool systems or developer. Okay, I think there is, yeah, there is a typo. So that's why this is giving an error. Okay, let me just like update this. Let's run this again. What is ML? Okay, so we have this YAML, and the assistant gave us a response, right? Now I'm going to say something like explain in detail. So now the assistant gives like a kind of a detailed response over here. So this is our first response, right? So what is ML, and we get a output here, and then we ask another question of explain in detail, and the assistant came up with a detailed response to it. So now I can print something like buy, and it's going to stop this. When I run this again, the chat history is again refreshed as this is initiating again. If you want to keep the older conversation as well, you can initiate this outside this chat history, or like kind of keep this as a persistent variable, instead of basically move this out of this cell above this cell, and keep running it, so that like all this chat history will be preserved in this variable. Just to make this better, what I'll do is, after this user input message, right, let's print a new line. And once the assistant has given a response, let's add some separation. So I'll say print print this hyphen, let's say 60 times, so that you would just like see the difference of like the first message and the second message and so on. Just simple separator. Let's run this. So after you type in u, there should be one line space after before this assistant response. That is the idea. So here I'll ask the same question of what is ML, right? So now you see this new line space here, right? So this is like better for viewing, and you see this separation of this first question and the output thing. Here I'll say explain in detail. So now you can clearly see the first message and second message, as we have kind of have this separator over here. So explain in detail, and the assistant say that I'm happy to explain machine learning in detail. Note here that we didn't say that explain about machine learning in detail. So the agent was able to look at the previous conversation as we are passing that in the chat history, and it was able to answer this. So this is how you can basically run a chatbot in your CLI by passing in the chat history, or even you can build a simple Streamlit user interface to it. I've made like several videos on how to build those Streamlit chatbots as well. So you can check that out as well. So again, as I said previously, I'll make more advanced videos on how you can build this multi-agent systems and all that in LangChain V1. You can also pass an exit or something to stop this, and now the execution stops. Again, you can run this if you want to test this. So that is all for this video. I hope that this is useful for you. So don't forget to check out my complete generative AI course on Udemy. So there we have like advanced end-to-end projects with deployments and all that. Even if you're a beginner to generative AI, so it will be like very useful to you, and you will be able to easily understand the concepts and build really cool applications. So yeah, that is all from my side, and I'll see you in the next upload. Thanks for watching.